Dear Yoko, I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to have this conversation and the interview, and would like to thank you on behalf of all of us at Stanford for your visit to Stanford and for the reading that will take place later this evening. It's a great honor and a pleasure to host you here at this university. In this conversation, I'd like to ask you a few general questions about your work, about your writing, about your path to your particular way of writing, which is writing in more than one language and being present in more than one culture, and hopefully also raising the question of the meaning of writing today in a global, international setting. My first question would be about your Werdegang, as one would say in German. What brought you to literature, to writing, to envision a career as an author? If you would care to begin by that, telling us a little bit about your Werdegang.
Werdegang, okay. I studied literature in Japan at Waseda University, especially Russian literature, but also I was interested in French and German or European literatures. And then, but I was also interested in languages as living languages. That means not written languages, but the language that people are using in everyday life. And when you live in Japan, you hear only Japanese language. There are few foreigners. Almost all people in Japan are Japanese or Japanese-speaking Korean minorities. So I couldn't really believe that someone can think and live without Japanese language. Of course, we learned English or other languages in the class, but class and learning books are something not natural. So I wanted to see how people live in another language, not in Japanese. And all other languages are different from Japanese, so I couldn't imagine how can one think about that or this without Japanese words. And so that's why I decided to come to Hamburg when I got a job there as a volunteer at a company, German company, which exported German books abroad. So, and then I met the foreign language as a, how can I describe it? It was very strange feeling. I knew, of course, books written in foreign languages, but people speaking foreign languages, it's maybe very normal in the United States and also in small countries in Europe, but not in Japan. So I was fascinated. And then I visited the university just because I was curious about how people are studying in Germany. What's the system, the German system of studying, and just look. So I visited University of Hamburg, and I was fascinated because it was so chaotic, and nobody knows how to study, and it was also free. It's not so expensive like the Stanford, but you don't have to pay anything, and there are many people. 5,000 students are studying German literature, and they are discussing, they are reading, they are walking around, and nobody knows how to study quickly, for example. But it was a world. I liked it. I liked just the University Hamburg, and I started to study there. And at first, I just wrote papers for the seminar, not the poem, not the novel in German language, but just papers. And then I met the text by Walter Benjamin, especially texts like Childhood in Berlin. And I liked that style. And that's a mixing of poem. For me, it's an essay, theoretical, but not and poetic, literary, and also many thinking thoughts are in it. So I said, that style, maybe it's a possibility to write in that style. It's not, before that, I couldn't imagine to write. I wrote novels and poems as a child, and always I continued writing, but only in Japanese languages. And I couldn't imagine to write novels in foreign languages. It was not my intent to do that. But the middle of the 80s, I arrived in Germany 1982, and maybe 85, 86, I began to think about it. Why not? Why can we not write in foreign languages? And I also met the text written in German languages by not German authors. There are many foreigners in Germany who write in German languages. And my first novel written in German is Where Europe Begins, 1988, 6 years after my arrival in Hamburg. And in that novel, some German words are very important for me. That's why I started to write in German. For example, the word Wasser. I really like that word. It means water, but there are energy or power in the word. Wasser, the power of the water, running water for me. And Japanese word for water is mizu. Mizu is a very quiet water. It doesn't run. It just stays here, and it's maybe good for meditation, but it's not a Wasser. So I wanted to write the story about Wasser and also Zug for the train. That is also a wonderful word, because Zug is connected to the word ziehen, pull. And my travel by the Trans-Siberian Railway is it's a railway, but it was pulled by a big power from Europe. I wanted to go there, and it was gezogen, or it was angezogen, and pulled, and Zug. And some key words in the stories, I can't translate them into Japanese. So that's why I wrote my first story in German language.
Do you think that the words themselves dictated the writing to you? That you were attracted or puzzled by words that then created the writing itself?
Yes, yes. Especially in short stories, like Storytellers Without Souls. Yeah. I met the word Zelle, cell, and it's something we have in our bodies, cells. But also it's telephone Zelle is a telephone booth, or how you call it. It's a box. It's disappeared because of cell phones, because in 80s there are many telephone celle in the city. And I liked them because it's transparent boxes in which people are standing and talking to somebody who is not there, who is maybe far away, and especially in the night, the light is in it, and it's a very beautiful image for me. And then I saw in my own body thousands of telephone booths, in which the very small one, of course, the micro telephone cells, in which people are talking, standing and talking each other. And that's the image that I got from one German word.
Is it translatable? Because I think it works in German well, but I'm trying to think about English.
I don't know how the translator did it. The telephone celle. Booth is not celle. It's not cells. And cell phone is something, something else. But I think translator must be very creative, You know, you can't translate one language into another. It's not possible generally. So you must find out something. You must have a new idea how you can put the idea of the story into the other languages. It's also the problem with the, it was a problem with the story where Europe begins. At the end of the story, the word Moscow is changing into M became to mother and O became to Omri and so on. But in English, you spell Moscow not in the same way like in German. And in Japanese, you can't translate this story into Japanese because we have Chinese ideograms and other syllables, not the alphabet. But still, you can find another way to transport it into another language. And at that point, maybe the original text can show its hidden face, I always say. The translation is not a copy of the original, but it's a changing body, it's metamorphose. And in the process of metamorphose, sometimes the original shows its hidden face, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating thing about the translation.
I would like to follow up on this, Yoko, and ask you, since you live in more than one language and you write in two languages at least, to what extent, when you write in German, you translate to yourself from Japanese and vice versa? Do you feel sometimes while writing something in Japanese that you translate from German or the other way around? Or are you really writing in the one language which you focus on at the moment?
I usually write only in one language. That means when I write Japanese story or story in Japanese, I don't translate it into German. And it remains Japanese. And then I write the next story in German. It is somehow connected to the other story, but it's not a translation. It's very difficult to translate one's own work. I tried it once with the text, the Gotthard Tunnel, or what's the English title? The Gotthard Railway. I wrote a short story in German, and then I tried to translate it into Japanese. But during I translated it, I got new ideas and new figures, new characters appeared, and they all came into the text, so that the text became 3 times longer than the original. And usually I don't think that I don't like, of course, not that the translator changes the original text. They can't do that. But in that case, I was the author, so I couldn't say no. That's a problem. It's better to write new stories than to translate one's own work.